Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, and welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 137, and I'm your host, Funk Roberts, former professional athlete turned online health, fitness, and hormone expert for men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And if you're a man in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, then you're in the right place. You're listening to the right podcast. You're listening to the right show. This is for you. Whether it's workouts, whether it's nutrition, whether it's testosterone and hormonal health, whether it's supplementation, whether it's sleep, whether it's recovery, whether it's your overall health and thwarting chronic health issues, this is the place for you. And thank you for being here. And today I'm excited because today I have old friend, someone I've worked closely with, someone I was on a mastermind with, but someone who, like last week, truly looked up to for many, many years. This is someone who, Logan Christopher, who, Logan, we used to be in a mastermind together. Logan is what I would call a legendary strength man, right? His strength is unbelievable because if you see Logan, if you see his physique, and you would never think that he's as strong as he is. You'd never think that he could do the feats that he does. But aside from that strength, aside from that incredible overall strength that he possesses, Logan has been instrumental in herbalization. He's been extremely instrumental in mental health, right? Mental toughness, right? It's got this book, Mental Muscle, that I got years ago. This book's 2015. Read this whole book, by the way, and was very happy to see some of the techniques that he has in this book were techniques that I was taught when I was 14 and 15 and used throughout my entire life to have that edge over competitive edge to help me rise through the corporate world, to help me with my business, to help me in everything. Everything that I've done, I've used a lot of the techniques. He's going to actually talk about one on this podcast episode, but the mental toughness, the herbalization, and creating herbs that are all natural that help us men with a variety of things you're going to learn. His story on how he transferred from bodyweight to kettlebells to strongman, old strength, old man, strong man, feats of strength, and just his philosophy around overall health, overall fitness for men and for everybody. You're going to enjoy this. This is amazing. If you guys don't know who Logan Christopher is, you got to definitely check him out on Instagram and see some of the incredible feats that he has. But this is another person who, throughout the years, like I said, we've known each other for probably 10 years now, worked with each other, masterminded with each other, and not just one mastermind and we show up. This is week after week after week as we got over the phone with a bunch of other icons in the industry. And Logan has always been someone who I've always admired and respected for everything that he does and continues to do, and we'll probably do something together in the future because I love what he brings to the table, that superhuman strength. But before we get there, we talked about hormones. We talked about some of the herbalization that he has, and I was very excited to know that a lot of the herbs that he has that were made for different things is inside my Alpha Max Test 3D Plus, which is my testosterone booster, all natural testosterone booster. We've got the pills. They're finally here. I'm really excited because Dr. Stephen Anton and I put a lot of work into the formulation in here. It's not just about testosterone boosting, which is why I was really happy to see that some of the herbs that Logan talked about for different things that will help with our overall hormone and health, we put in here. Ashwagandha, Tonkat Ali, Shilajit. There's so many things, the magnesium, zinc, all of the things that we are deficient of, but will help us with our hormones, but also cortisol levels, right? We want to manage our cortisol levels. We want to definitely decrease and manage and make sure that we have a healthy amount of estrogen and not elevated estrogen, because that's what most men have. This helps with energy, of course. This helps with blood flow. We've put stuff in here for mood and to decrease your anxiety and help you to stay, almost relaxed, right? So you can really focus. You keep the cortisol levels down. This is an all-in-one supplement, but with the focus of optimizing your hormones and helping you to literally boost your testosterone levels. That's the formulation that we put in here, the actual ingredients. We really and truly did our work specifically with science, right? Because again, Stephen Anton, that's what he does. He works at the University of Florida. He's researched, Dr. Stephen Anton. He's written hundreds of papers and of anti-aging and obesity and metabolic health. So for him, coming together with him, it was very, very important that something that he put together, again, because he's got the University of Florida that he has to deal with, was good. It made sense, and it would work, and it was powerful. And so when we formulated this, we truly looked at the research, right? So of course, you can put an ingredient into a supplement based on research. Research probably proved that, oh yeah, this would help testosterone levels increase 100 nanograms per deciliter. But A, are you putting the amount of that ingredient that was used in the research? And that was a big thing for us. And that was actually a big thing for me because I also come from a research background in neurology. And one of the things that I wanted to ensure was that, okay, when we could, because, the FDA has to take a look at this, I wanted to use the exact amount, that was used in the research that proved what we wanted this to prove, like whether it was decreasing anxiety or whether it was, testosterone boosting or whatever it was. Wanted to make sure, okay, well, this says that they use this ingredient, right? Like, Tonkat Ali or, holy basil for this certain thing. Well, how much did they use in that study that got those results, right? And how much did they use in this study that got this result? And we took a look and we saw, and then we made sure, okay, this is the amount we're putting in. And then, of course, it's got to pass FDA. And lo and behold, this is an incredible, all natural, very powerful Alpha Max Test 3D testosterone booster. Listen, my whole programming and everything I do is based on helping men naturally increase testosterone levels. Heck, I created the National Testosterone Awareness Day. That was what I created. So this is something that's very dear and near to me. Again, I'm not just here trying to sell you something to make money, because we could have just made this very general, not pay as much as we did to create this, keep the costs down, and just boom, sell it to you. But I need this to work, which it does. I want my name is on it. Our name are on it. And I make this stuff for myself and my brothers in the brotherhood, because they trust me, and I don't want to let them down with anything that I do. And so if you are looking for a testosterone booster, something that's natural, something to kickstart your overall health so that now you can naturally feed your body what it needs for hormonal health, for metabolic health, for to decrease and increase your mood and decrease anxiety, and just really and truly get you that kickstart you need, boost your libido, and help you to start the journey of overall health and fitness in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, then go to funksupplements.com, use code podcast10, and get Alpha Max Test 3D Plus, which is our new supplement. It's amazing. It's incredible. The guys are loving it. I'm loving it. Women, if you want to take it too, by all means you can, specifically if you're in the menopause stage. And with all that said, let's get to the strongman training. Let's get to the herbalization, and let's get to some mental muscle with our boy, Logan Christopher. Enjoy the podcast. Logan, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Funk. It's good to have this reunion.
Yeah, totally. Yes, we work together in a mastermind, helping each other's businesses as we, met up in Sacramento, which was really cool. And the one thing that always stands out to me, the one thing that stands out the most to me, is the 72-pound kettlebell snatches, or maybe it was even more. Maybe it was 100, but like I think it was more. But I remember
Yeah.
like trying to do that, and I couldn't even bring it down. And then we saw the video. We're like, oh, this is how you bring it down. It's amazing. But just how much was that snatch? That's unbelievable.
I think what you're referring to is the beast snatch test I was going for.
Yes.
So the 106-pound kettlebell, and my aim, I never quite got there, but was do it 100 times in 10 minutes. My best ever was 91 reps. And I remember when I first started training, like when I was getting into kettlebells, my goal was to snatch that thing a single time. And it took, months of training to get there. So then to do this as an endurance event later on was, it was a true challenge.
100%. Like for the kettlebellers who are listening to this, snatching a 106-pound kettlebell alone is tough, but then that's one. Number two, bringing it down with control. That's number two. Number three, doing it for 90 times is unbelievable. But
Yeah.
thank you so much again for being on here. Okay, so Logan, let's start from the beginning. Who is Logan? How did you start? Give us like your origin story.
Yeah. So I am not naturally strong or athletic. I was the proverbial 98-pound weakling. Like literally when I entered freshman in high school years, I didn't weigh 100 pounds. But my older brother played football, so I decided to go in football and played 4 years. Was never any good at it, honestly. Neither was our team, for the facts of the matter. It wasn't really till the end of high school. Like, I was doing strength training, but I was the classic hard gainer. Like, I didn't see much in the way of results. It was shortly after high school that I got into bodyweight exercises. Much more than just like push-ups and squats. It was really with Matt Fury stuff. Hindu push-ups, Hindu squats, the wrestler's bridge early on, that I was like, oh, I'm having more fun with this stuff than I was doing like bodybuilding stuff in the gym, because that's all I was exposed to before. And I was actually starting to see results. And I just kind of continued on this path. The bodyweight exercises led to kettlebells, that led to the strongman training. And as I really got into this stuff and found a love for it, it was because I wasn't naturally strong or athletics. Like, oh, I'm going to seek an edge wherever I can find it. So this led into all the mental training stuff with neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis. This led me into nutrition and herbalism, a wide variety of different things. I was like, oh, can I take these tools and use it to perform at more of a peak and really be able to push the limits of what I do, because I didn't have those like genetic gifts. I wanted to use my smarts to really help me to do so. So that's kind of an overview of how I got into this and how I kind of developed towards today.
Yeah, so you did that. So you went from body weight. So how old are you?
I am 38 right now. So just a little under the mark for your podcast.
Yeah, no, you're perfect for the podcast. Believe me, believe me. So you went from body weight to kettlebells, and so talk about that transition.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I stopped doing bodyweight training and just started doing kettlebells, but my friend who was also into training, he got a kettlebell. And for a while I was a bodyweight only guy, because I was told that, bodyweight's the best way of training. And I do think it's a fantastic way of training that everyone should absolutely do, because, well, the main reason is like you're in your body, might as well learn how to use it, right? But my friend got a kettlebell and we started doing some swings at a park. And from that first moment, I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is fun. So then I started adding in the kettlebell training in there and had a great time with it.
When you say body weight, what were the body weight exercises that you were doing? Because you said not the conventional like body weight exercises, but what were some of the ones outside of the conventional that you could probably still use today?
Yeah. So I mentioned Matt Fury and really got started with what he called the Royal Court. So that's the Hindu squat, which is along with the Hindu push-up. These are less linear. They're more like kind of rhythmic and secular in action and can be done for really high reps. Then the wrestler's bridge and the gymnastic bridge. So having your head on the ground or hands on the ground, really good for the spine and flexibility, neck strength, those sort of things. And I started to get into handstands, doing some hand balancing. So being able to hold a handstand first against a wall, but then practicing it out in the open. Handstand push-ups, still one of my favorite exercises to this day. And of course, a wide variety of other exercises, but just kind of around the basics of that stuff. Pistol squats would be another one. So, most people you build the flexibility and mobility to do a full range squat, but the strength involved in that is usually not very much, right? So how can we make it a little bit harder? Pistol squats are definitely, more flexibility, more mobility, and more strength involved. And of course, there's variations on top of that as well.
Yeah, you just mentioned all the hardest bodyweight exercises on the planet.
Well, that's the thing. Most people think like push-ups, sit-ups, squats, like, oh, it's all endurance. But once you understand the keys of progression, which is
Mhm.
like the foundation of any sort of effective training, and it's a little bit harder with body weight than it is with weights, right? Where you throw another 5 pounds on the bar. So you have to understand leverage and how we go from two limbs to one limb, or spread the leverage out on the exercise. So yeah, things like pull-ups, so you can work towards a one-arm pull-up. You start with push-ups, work towards handstand push-ups, and then full-range handstand push-ups. Uh, Bodyweight squats to one-legged squats, this
Right.
sort of thing. Once you understand those progressions, then yeah, you're going to work towards the harder variations if you're spending some time with bodyweight training.
How do you think that translates into every day? Like if I'm a 43-year-old guy and I don't have any weights, and but I want to get stronger, and I've been doing like the push-ups and squats. I'm getting much better
Mhm.
at that. They're very easy, and now I want to add on or progress and start to progress. How do you think people are going to feel in their everyday life doing those exercises, but through the progression?
Yeah, I mean, I think really focusing on strength is going to build your vitality overall. I mean, all the different components of movement are important. So, strength, endurance, flexibility, mobility, coordination. Really, if you want to age well, have like pain-free movement, then if you are focusing on any one of these attributes to the exclusion of others, you're basically just putting gaps in your game, right? So it's really important to do all these, and that doesn't mean you need to like focus on every single thing all at once. Like there's an overwhelming way the body can be moved, right? But I do really think of strength as kind of that master component. If you're focusing on building strength, and with bodyweight exercises like that comes along with coordination and mobility oftentimes, right? We talked about the pistol as a strength exercise, but really it's even more so like flexibility and mobility, right? So there's a blending of these things, and just in general, the better you can move with all these qualities, like the more energy you're going to have throughout the day, the more vitality, just the easier your day is going to be. So with a person, if you're just doing normal push-ups, right? Raise your feet up, start doing these decline push-ups. That's going to be building a bridge towards handstand push-ups. Now, with handstand push-ups, there is more coordination. There's balance, even if you're doing it against the wall. So you're going to have to practice this with a little bit of like skill and technique. Like think of it as a practice, but then you can start doing the strength component of that and building toward handstand push-ups. I mean, when I first started, like when my brother started training me to go into football, I could not do a push-up in normal form. Okay. It took me like 6 months of training when I was like 18, 19, somewhere around that age, to be able to do my first handstand push-up against the wall. Again, I started with nothing really and built from there. So it's about looking at where you're starting at and really like, okay, what are the steps to get to where I want to go?
And even through that journey, it's probably like so many little milestones. Like, okay, oh my
Right.
God, I did 10. Like, and then it just
Yes.
feeds you, right?
Oh yeah, now my best I've ever done. I've done a full range freestanding handstand push-up, right? So not against the wall, but to be able to do it between two chairs, touching all the way down and going back up. So I think that
Yeah,
from not being able to do a push-up to being able to do that, that's pretty good. But that was
absolutely.
what, a decade or longer in that journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, thinking of the long term, that's really important for fitness, especially if we're talking about aging. It's, we all want results today, and there are some ways you can do that, but that's not the big picture, right? You need to think in the long term, and just doing things habitually, consistently, that's going to get you to where you want to go. To like one day I woke up, it's like, whoa, people like see me as one of the strongest people and
In the
all these
world.
many things. And it's
Yeah,
like, how did I get here?
totally. Like that's how I look at you. It's like
Yeah.
legendary strength. Like that's, you know,
Yeah,
um,
I mean, I created my business with that name. It was like an aspirational thing. Then, yeah, as I said, like, is like, okay, I've done some pretty legendary feats of strength at this point.
totally. You walk the walk. And that's why I kind of started the body weight. Like, for me, I did body weight just because for fighters, I felt that,
Oh yeah.
like you said, all of the attributes like mobility, like just mobility, flexibility, agility, explosiveness, power, strength, endurance,
Hmm.
muscularness, like, all of those things made sense for me to, you know, like obviously I did metabolic resistance training, but body weight was really, I think even to this day, people still think I'm just a body weight person.
Right.
Like, just because I mean, that was the best way for fighters who didn't have the coach or the strength coach or whatever to be able to get their conditioning and longevity and also just stay injury free. Cause that's the other thing too, is
Hmm.
like you mentioned with body weight, all of the things that you're doing is going to help you stay injury free as you get stronger when you start with weights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing that often holds people back in fitness is injuries, right? So, I mean, body weight exercise can be very helpful in this, as can weights, right? But really learning how to prehab and rehab your body, which involves like learning to interpret the signals of the body. That so much of the problem with fitness is people, there's a dark side to mental toughness, right? Like, absolutely, we need it. We need to be able to push the limits. However, if you are pushing the limits by shutting off the signals in your body that are saying, hey, stop, this isn't a good idea, then you're going to pay a price for that, right? So I'm a huge fan of learning to really learn the language of the body, learn to interpret those signals, and work with the body as an ally. And this can be great for avoiding injury in the first place, but also when you get any little injury, being able to fix it, essentially.
Yeah, I know. Like 40, 50, 6-year-old guys that are coming into my program are either, they're coming in with injuries from before, or like they're just at that point. Because sometimes these guys don't realize that if you've been like let's say you've been a factory worker for 20 years, you've been doing the same thing over and over again. And listen, maybe you're not injured, but then all of a sudden you start phase number one. There's push-ups in phase number one. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, my shoulder. It's like, oh, I screwed up my shoulder doing push-ups in Funk's program. It's like, I don't know if you screwed up your shoulder doing the push-ups. You probably were learning how to do the push-up, but your shoulder was probably right there from years and years. But then there's also guys who will start the program, and like I like what you said about like you can't just be focused on the one aspect. So for me, I make sure that there's mobility and yoga and all of those things so that they don't get injured. But guys are excited. They want to start a program and they get the workout done, and then, oh, you want me to do yoga for 15 minutes? You know what? I'm going to go to workout number 2. And lo and behold, 4 weeks later, oh man, I screwed up my back or my knee or, whatever. I'm like, are you doing the yoga or the mobility or the warm up or the stretch that are with the program? Nah. So it's great that you, you mentioned that. The other thing too, I want to just add on, or want you to talk about with the strength. And I'm not sure if you do this type of training, but when people think about strength, the first thing they think about is deadlift, back squat, barbell bench press. Do you use those to develop
at times? So one of my principles is like rotation over time of the training. So right now I'm not doing any of, I'm doing a trap bar deadlift is part of my program right now. And of those exercises, like deadlift is my favorite. That's just a personal sort of affinity for that. So with it being my favorite, I've taken that one further than the other ones. But the way I like to look at training and movement is just look at the basic movement patterns of the body, right? We have upper body push and pull. So that can be push-ups or bench press or handstand push-ups. These are different pushes. Of course, we have different angles of the body that we can factor in as well. A pull would be a row or a pull-up, that sort of thing. Then the lower body, we have pushes and pulls as well. So squats would be the push, and then deadlift would be the pull or a hinge, right? So those are like the 4 just basic foundational movements. And if you look at any training program, you should have those in there at least most of the time, right? There can be times when you skip one, but think of those as the 4 basic movements, and then we can get to secondary things from there. So sometimes I'm working on like a max strength thing with one of those exercises. Other times I'm going some other way. So it's really part of doing, since I do so much with barbells, with bodyweight, with kettlebells, with strongman, you can't do it all at once, right? So it's rotating different things, and it's also following the motivations. Like, I really want to do a lot of bodyweight exercises right now, or, I'm good on bodyweight exercise. I want to just lift some heavy weights, right? And that can change up over time, and I think that's all good.
I love that. That talks to the longevity piece of the mindset, right? Like, you're here for life, so like, you don't need to be getting everything done at once, And
well, you can't.
That's
a thing. That's what, and I think that's really important. It's like, sure, if you are an athlete that is competing in these things, you obviously got to stick with those long term. But if you're looking for longevity, recognize that there are benefits and drawbacks to every single exercise, every form of training, right? If you do all body weight, like, tons of great stuff there, and you could do that for years and have phenomenal results. But there's something to be said for picking up something heavy off the ground, right? And being able to work with objects that are outside of your body. Body weight exercise does not have any sort of deadlifting type movement. Like those muscles will be worked in some other ways, but there's nothing that really mimics that. And we're talking about one-legged squats. Yeah, that takes more strength than two-legged squat, but really, like, your legs are strong once you've built it. Like, you need to add some weight in there if you really want to push that. You can go some other directions with like explosive jumping exercise, sprints that can do it, but you see what the top sprinters in the world doing. They're lifting some weights as well, right? So recognizing the advantages and disadvantages, and again, that's why I say it's a principle of rotating over time what you're doing. You're going to be able to pick up some of the advantages without just kind of having those deficits by always ignoring the disadvantages of your particular method or tool.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love it. So how would someone know when to change? Like, because I get that question all the time. It's like, what workout should I do now? What program? Like, I've done the first 12 phases. It's like, well, what is your goal? Right? Like, what do you feel like doing? That, like, I kind of try to push it back as opposed to me now having to like spoon feed them. Okay, go to phase 13, go to phase 4. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So a couple different things. I think honestly, like psychologically, this is driven by that. So if you are super motivated to train in a certain way, whereas a different program you'd have no motivation for, like we got to start with motivation. Now, if there's nothing there, if you want to look at your gaps or what your strengths are, like there's 1,000 different ways you could possibly do this. What I like to do is, one, if I just go stale on some sort of training program, then I'll switch it up. Like, I'm always tweaking and testing and evolving my program, but if I feel like stale and it's like, okay, just scrap it all, I got to start with something new, right? That can be out of going stale, but it also, okay, I just hit this massive goal that I wanted to do. Okay, let's do something differently entirely, because I'm adapted to that training. I want to move it. So after doing that beast snatch challenge that I was working at, I was like, okay, I don't want to touch a kettlebell for a while now, right? I'm going to go completely different exercise things, like not doing the snatch at all. And I haven't really focused on the snatch since doing that, because I've done enough snatches, right? So yeah, there's a couple different factors in here, but just kind of following the energy, but also like if you get hurt with a program, that may be a time to like, okay, I got to back off and do something different because my body is not working well with what I've been approaching, right? So those are a few times where staleness, hit a goal, or hurting yourself, those would be three of the bigger points in which to change.
And it's not bad to change, like specifically if those are the motivations. It's not bad. I think it's great. I think like that's why I give, when someone asks me and they're like torn, I give them autonomy. Like, hey man, you've reached the one milestone. Just all I want people to do is get to 1 year to alpha. As soon as you get there, then the doors open to, all these opportunities, right? Yeah. And because it's a long game. So, I find that it's not bad. Okay, so now your body weight, let's go to the kettlebells now. We love kettlebells. How did that transition happen?
Yeah, I mean, it started kind of slowly, just like working in these exercises. Then I went through kettlebell certification programs. So one thing that gripped me more than others, just because it was so much fun, was kettlebell juggling. And for people that aren't familiar with this, it's not like traditional juggling of 3 different kettlebells or anything, but it's usually just one kettlebell, and it's the flipping, the tossing, the spinning it around your body. You're talking about body weight exercises being great for fighters. I think kettlebell juggling can be one of the best things because it uses explosive strength, endurance in there, hand-eye coordination. Like, so much is going on at the time, plus it's just plain fun, right? You can juggle a kettlebell, you're doing essentially like hundreds of swings, but not really thinking about swings, because that's just the foundational part as you're working on a skill involved in doing this movement. So once I saw Jeff Martone doing that, I was like, I'm going to really practice this, and I've had tons of fun with that over the years. And you can work with a light kettlebell and do very complex tricks, and spend 10 minutes juggling without trying to drop it at all. Or I've taken that 106-pound kettlebell and just done some of the basic flips in it. You can have lots of fun with these different things. So the kettlebells just kind of grew, and I really enjoy the kettlebell snatch as an exercise, doing that for reps. So I mentioned that snatch test, but I also did the 53-pound kettlebell, the 24 kilogram, snatched that for 301 times in 10 minutes, which is like a nonstop pace, going as fast as possible. I've had some fun with kettlebells over the years.
How are those hands looking?
They're good right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
the skin toughness is definitely can be an issue in there. And one of my funnest, this was a just exciting feat of strength, was like I lit a kettlebell on fire and then juggled that around my body as well. Anyone that wants to see that video is on YouTube, flaming kettlebell juggling. You'll find it.
Yes, I do remember. Actually, I remember that. So,
Yeah.
is it more hard style? Is it regular kettlebell
Yeah.
competition, or is it
So I study both the hard style and the gear voice sport, and really for what I was doing with the snatch, like I adapted things. So many people's like, my system's the right system, my system's the right system. It's like, again, going back to what I was just talking about, what are the advantages and disadvantages of both? So you see, like, there's a time and a use for going more hard style, using the tension and whatnot. And there's a time for more of the relaxed method in doing it. When I was going for that 300 snatches in 10 minutes, it worked best. Taking little bits and pieces of both and kind of adapting and making my own style in doing that movement, because that was what moved me specifically best towards that goal. So, I think it's worth learning all the different things, and then it depends on what you're going for.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think you should reach. By the way, just a side note, I think you should reach out to Tony Ferguson. He's a UFC fighter who trained with David Goggins for his last fight.
Oh, yeah.
But his next fight, I think you need to reach out to him and do kettlebell juggling, because he's that type of guy who will do he's always been that way. His type of training has always been kind of like, oh, I'm going to try this over here.
Yeah.
That's always good, and just introduces people to different methods. But yeah, that would be, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see kettlebell juggling.
That would be great.
So with kettlebell training, you implemented all three, which is amazing. And then what came after that? Like, was there something after that you kind of focused more on?
Yeah, getting into the old time strongman stuff. So I was rocking and rolling with bodyweight exercise and kettle. And let me address with the kettlebells. Like, that was over the span of years that I like went into gear voice sport and whatnot. It's not like I did that all from the beginning. That was over a span of time. But specifically, I read a biography of the mighty Adam, who was a small Jewish fellow that literally as a kid was like sickly and was supposed to die according to the doctors, literally ran away and joined a circus, was tutored under a strongman, went on to become this incredible strongman that performed in the vaudeville era. And I read this biography, and it really is, for whatever reason, was like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I was getting into the fitness stuff. It's like, oh, this strongman stuff sounds really fun. He was also very interested in natural living and herbs and all that. So that really set me up for the directions I wanted to go. The mighty Adam, his protege was a guy named Slim the Hammerman, who then taught a guy named Dennis Rogers, and Dennis Rogers was then teaching strongman at the time. So I went to learn from Dennis Rogers and started doing some of these old time feats of strength. And the thing with old time feats of strength, it's more performance based versus the modern strongman, which is the competitive stuff. And they're both great. I've done some of the modern strongman stuff as well. I love that too. But the old time strongman stuff would involve like tearing a deck of cards in half, or a phone book. Can't really find phone books anymore, but that used to be one I did all the time. Bending nails and horseshoes, doing a wide variety of different things, where very often it's like, that display of strength that the average person can understand and be wowed by. So I started to get more into that, and that involves a lot of like hand and grip strength training. I was doing a little bit of that before, but got more focused on there and just kind of wove that into everything I was doing.
So give us an example of the training for ripping, ripping the. I remember you did that actually in Sacramento. I totally remember you doing that.
So right now I'm training to tear 2 decks of cards in half because one's not hard enough, right? But it's the principles of progression, and you understand that. So of course there's technique that you use in this movement, how you grip the cards and everything. And it's a very specific type of grip that you're using, but you learn that technique and you start with something like 15 cards. You can't start with less than that, like they bend too much. So you want to have like that bare minimum. And then, practice that technique. Can you do it? Oh, okay. Can we do 16 cards next time? 7 times. You just build up card by card until you're able to do a deck. Whereas in my current case, I'm trying to build up to 2 decks. I've done 91 cards so far. So That's my current PR, and building up a little bit further than that.
So, okay. So it's like said, I guess the said principle. It's literally how you're training to rip cards is ripping cards. How you're
Yes,
training
I
to
mean other things are going to apply. You know, you can work with grippers or blocked
okay,
weights, pinch grip.
okay,
There's more basic things that the average person can do, and grip training is very seldomly done as an overall population. But again, if we're looking at like longevity, hand strength is correlated with less death from all causes, right? So the stronger, I mean, this is only going to be true to a point, but basically we have a lot of neurology in our hands. Our hands can do a lot. So doing some specific training for them can be really good. With kettlebells, you know, you have a thick handle, you're getting some grip training in there, but I think most people would find some advantage in doing some specific grip training as well, just adding that into the routine. It can be very fun stuff. Of course, you can do things like rip decks of cards in half, but again, we can do some basics like take two plates and put the smooth sides out and pick those up with both hands or one hand. That would be a pinch grip, one way of training these little digits we have.
yeah. Actually, I remember creating a program. Now I think about it, I created a program, strength program, a dumbbell strength program back in the day. And one of the exercise, I can't even believe I remember this, was picking up a big cinder block and just like
Yep.
that was part of, just getting that grip. It was a finisher actually. I was like, why do I just totally, if you don't have the actual plates, then you can just grab
Yep.
blocks or whatever. And it's just, you're right. The grip strength is like, it's not even in anybody's training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they train something else and say that, oh, this will also help grip strength. But
Hmm.
like like you just said, the importance of grip strength and how it translates into not having all of those morbidities or whatever, or decreasing
Hmm.
chances of that. Um, do you know Jed Johnson?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
Like I got to get him on this podcast, talk about grip strength.
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the top guys in the world. So grip sport is a whole sport. You can definitely
Okay.
specialize, but because the hands can move so many different ways, it's also very interesting because there are so many different grip exercises and variations that you can do. There are, of course, ways to like build this into what you're doing. So, instead of just doing pull-ups on a bar, well, some places will have thick bars, right? So it's like lifting a thick barbell or dumbbell, but you can also throw a towel over a bar, and then you're kind of doing a grip similar to a rope. Rope climbing would be another one that, even though we're working these other exercises, you can build a bit more of a grip component into it, as well
Right.
as doing these other specific exercises.
So what are their old legendary old school old time strength, right? That's what it
Yep.
is.
Hmm.
What other what other exercises, or not, I guess feats, what other
Yep.
feats would someone do? Like if someone, I know there's some guys in my program right now that are probably like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much fun stuff. I'll just talk about a few that I've
Yeah.
done. So I mentioned the wrestler's bridge. So that's where you're bent over backwards, with your feet on the ground and your head, the top of the head on the ground. And this is great for kind of spine flexibility as well as strength, especially of the neck.
Yeah.
And I seem to have a particular affinity for this. I built up to holding that position for 10 minutes. I was like, that takes too long. I want to do something shorter. So I was like, let me add some weights to it. So I had like people sit on me. And eventually I built up to doing 1,000 pounds on top of me in that
What?
position.
Oh my
Right.
God.
So I had it in a couple different ways, lifting a
Right.
barbell as well as people sitting on top of me. The weight distribution matters if it's over the head versus the legs, but doing half a ton on top of a position that it's death defying. Most people would think, and most people would break their neck doing such a thing, right?
100%.
So anytime you can introduce this danger element, that's a big part of the performance thing. So I've pulled a 8,800 pound fire truck by my hair. I don't really recommend that one. It's not very fun. But I had the hair. This is something the Mighty Atom did. So I was like, let me give that a try. What are some other ones? Lifting people in various ways is often that, because part of the performance aspect is, can you get this across to a person that may not have any sort of knowledge, right? You pick a heavy 700-pound barbell off the ground. It's not that impressive to the average person, even though it's an impressive feat of strength, right? You lift people in some manner, like people can understand the weight of people. So I've done a Turkish get up with, many people get used doing this with a kettlebell. It can also be done with a barbell, but it can also be done with a person, right? So from the laying supine position, holding a person overhead, then coming to standing with the person overhead, different stuff like that.
Do you think you're one of the first people to do this stuff?
No,
Like,
everything
like
essentially has been
now,
done, but there is a
in
lot of
modern day.
creativity that goes into the strongman stuff. So, for instance, most people I've seen at some point someone like break concrete over themselves, right?
Oh,
Someone's
yeah, I remember that.
swing a sledgehammer. So I was like, okay, I'm great at bridging. Can I hold weights in that position with concrete on top of me and have someone swing a sledgehammer at me, right? So I've done that
Mm.
a few times. I don't think anyone else had really done that specifically at that point. The flaming kettlebell juggling, like that was like, oh, I was talking to someone that was talking about doing some like fire stuff, swallowing fire. I was like thinking, kettlebell juggling. I should light a kettlebell on fire and see how that goes, right? So I enjoy the creative aspect of it as well.
Yeah. No, when I mentioned, were you the first? I mean, like, over the last 15, okay, let's say over the last 10 years, right?
Hmm.
Specifically with social media. So, I've seen people do do the Turkish get up, but I saw you doing that way before then.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
no,
Like,
definitely some other people have
have been doing that.
done it in different places. Yeah, different
Okay.
ways of lifting people. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so now that we've got the strongman, old school, let's get to the mental aspect of this,
Hmm.
because there has to be a lot of mental fortitude that needs to go into consistently, not just the old man stuff, but just everything. Because the way okay, let me back up for a second. How tall are you and how much do you weigh? Because I want to put perspective into this for
Yeah,
people who are listening and watching.
I'm 6'2", and I typically weigh around 185 pounds.
Okay.
So I don't look like I can do what I can do. I like the term deceptive strength. So I do look fit, but you wouldn't necessarily, like, I'm not a big, massive guy. So yeah, that's part of doing the thing. Like, yes, big people can do stuff, but when you take someone that just looks reasonably fit but can do this, like, whoa, blows people's minds.
100%. The deceptive strength. I remember you had a program like that. Deceptive
Hmm.
strength
Yep.
is one of my yeah, I love that. I love that type of yeah, that's incredible, that the mental um thing about thinking about looking at someone and not thinking they're strong, and all of a sudden they're picking up something, and then you look at yourself and you're like, because I always tell as we get older in our 40s, 50s, 60s, as men specifically, right? Like, this is the time when things happen in our lives, in our families. Friends may start to die. You got to start taking care of your mother and your father a little bit more, depending if you have them, because they're getting older. People around you are, getting sick, or whatever disease, strokes or whatever that happens. And most of the time, whether you like it or not, they're going to be looking to you as the male of the family for help. Like, we back in the day, but like, if something happened in the family, you look to grandpa. Hey, grandpa, like, what are we doing? And grandpa's there. He's taking care of everybody. He's making sure everyone's okay. You know what I mean? While there's chaos in the family, right? But these guys, they don't understand that when you are obese, overweight, when you're sick yourself, when you're so sick that you're in the hospital and your family has to take care of you, and you're only 45 years old, and then you're draining the account, and like all of the things that go into that, and you can't take care of your family, let alone yourself, when time when all of those things happen and shit hits the fan, which will always happen. You'll lose your job, you'll get a new job, your wife may leave you. Like, the number one thing most men will do at this point is coward. And like, you know what I mean? Or oh, can you lift this thing over and put it up on there on the shelf, honey? Oh man, I can't, my back. Like things like that are just so mentally, like, draining, that it is so important for us to be as healthy as we can, as we get older. And I don't know where I was going with that, but the mental, oh yeah, the mental, to start, that has to transition over to your training and your health. So that's where I was going with that. Where's the mental part of that come into
Yeah.
play?
Yeah, so when we talk about mental training, like, it's such a broad field and there's so much to it. Where I really focused was like, everyone's heard these quotes. You have to believe in yourself, right? Or the game is 100% mental, right?
Mhm.
Every sports like legend has said this, right? So
Mhm.
everyone like kind of knows this, and yet they don't know how to do mental training. Like
Right.
we can actually, just like you learn the technique of doing a push-up or lifting something, right? We have specific techniques of mental training where we can do this step-by-step process and it can elicit some sort of result. So in that mental training umbrella, there of course is like, just the long-term, like belief in yourself, the goal setting, stuff you were talking about, and just like attitude, right? But we
Right.
can also is like, can we visualize a single exercise and do it in a way that improves your performance on that exercise,
Mm.
right? So that's in my book you were showing there, Mental Muscle. I kind
Mental
of
model.
break down those specific techniques with visualization, for instance.
Mm.
So I believe I say in there, how you visualize is more important than what you visualize. And this comes from my neuro-linguistic programming training, but essentially it's this, right? So in sports psychology, for a long time, they've done visualization, but it's like focusing on doing the technique of your thing. And if you're doing this well, your imagination causes your body to fire in certain ways, right? Like
Mm.
if you are running or lifting, right, the muscles will be activated because your nervous system cannot tell the difference between something that is real and something that is vividly imagined, right? So just getting as real and detailed as possible, that can be one direction to go, and that's very useful. But we can also sort of hack into our neurology in sort of ways. So a simple, like quick action tip that I give people, because this works in 70-80% of cases, is visualize yourself doing an exercise, but just make the visualization brighter. Like turn up the lights in it. And
Mm.
what this effectively does is it seems to add more neurological energy to what you're doing. So if you visualize in this way right before doing an exercise, you often will be able to perform better at that exercise. Like it's as
Mhm.
simple as that. We can, of course, go into more detail. One of the classic examples, I was presenting for Dragon Doors conference. This was many years ago, and took a woman that she was able to do 2 one-arm push-ups, which is pretty good, right? Pretty strong already. I hacked into her mind. Basically, what I did was, what's an exercise that's easy for you, and what's an exercise that's hard for you? The one-arm push-ups, right? So I think the easy exercise was squats. How do you perceive internally squats? How do you visualize this? Some of the details for how that person encoded an easy exercise versus how they encode internally a hard exercise. We took the details, so like how she felt the connections with her body. There was like a yellow color, if I'm remembering correctly, and we brought those over into visualizing the one-arm push-up. And then she was able to do 7 one-arm push-ups.
Wow.
Now, it doesn't always work this good. In fact, it seldom works as good. I think being on the stage, that really helped it because there was like that amped up energy
Right.
that did it. But this exercise, this sort of visualization does work if you apply the steps properly, right? So it's about not just believing in yourself, like this vague phrase, right? But how do we actually go about doing that and building this in? And then again, that's just visualization, but we can use hypnosis, we can
Mhm.
use anchoring, we can use a variety of different tools that all can be helpful in different ways, and of course can be blended together as well, right? So doing some hypnotic programming, we're building in anchors. We can do the visualization in a state that makes the visualization easier, but also like works deeper with your subconscious as well. So these are some of the tools that I brought to bear, and a large part of the success in what I've been able to do in strength and fitness is because of these tools.
And I'm going to triple down on that because I was so lucky as a volleyball player when I was 14 years old. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what, 40 years ago or something like that. My coach taught us visualization. So
Yeah.
so I think we've talked about this for like 14-year-old boys. So after every practice, 14-year-old, all of us would have to lie down on the ground and he would say, okay, so give us a breathing. Then we do our breathing. Then he would say, okay, I want you to pretend, look up at this at the ceiling or whatever and pretend that you're at a drive-in. That's because back in the day, drive-in, big
Yep.
drive-in thing. And I want to, and then whatever the skill that he's okay, we're gonna practice passing. I want you to visualize yourself passing a ball perfectly over and over again. Perfect pass because And then he would also add in, what does that feel like? What does that feel like? What does that feel like? So at first when you're doing it, you're just thinking this specifically as 14-year-old guys, boys, where it's like, this is so stupid, but we continue to do it. And then before every single match, he would go visualize, go visualize. So we would all be, in there visualizing. And on paper, our team was horrible. Like if you looked up paper versus we were shorter, we're playing at the highest level, but we were a very short team and kind of like putting everybody together. But because I know 100% because we visualized and we all were on the same page while we were doing it, we ended up winning the championships. That's actually helped me as a professional athlete. It helped me in all sports. I would be playing like slow pitch baseball, right? Like just whatever. But I know these tools. So as soon as I hit a ball and I felt that hit, I'd be okay, keep that. Remember what that felt like. And then I would visualize, and I'd have that. I'm doing it right now, actually. I have the feeling of what it felt like hitting. And every single time I would hit without always hit the ball. Visualization has been such an incredible tool, not just physically, but also before I do talks or when I was doing meetings, I would always visualize myself like 5 minutes after how I would feel. It is so huge. And, I'm glad you brought that up. And I do remember reading that in this book that you have a whole chapter on visualization right here. So do you still have this book?
Yeah, it's still available. It's on Amazon as well as Dragon.
This book is absolutely incredible, man.
Yeah.
So the fact that
it's great that you got that foundation so young. Like how few of people have got that. It's really amazing. The good news is, you're listening here. Like if you have not been trained in visualization, pick up the book or have resources on my website. Just get started with it. The cool thing about visualization is it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Like, yes, you can do 15 minutes sitting there, but honestly, you can spend like 5 seconds right before you do a lift. And that's one of my favorite ways of doing it. It's like no extra time. You're just resting in between sets. You can do that. And yeah, it's free to do, right? Like you're just working on your own neurology in that way. So it's definitely worth doing.
Oh yeah, I used to use that all the time in the gym. Like literally, okay, last set, I would just sit there, visualize for like 10 seconds or less, and then end up, blasting through a 90-pound chest press back. Well, it's way back, but yeah, it works. It 100% works. I'm so glad you have this book, and I'm definitely gonna advise that. So let's talk about the state of hormones and testosterone and what's happening in this world right now. Like, please, what is your take on everything?
Yeah, so definitely the fitness kind of led me to everything, right? So it led to the mental training because I wanted to get better at it. It led me to an understanding of testosterone because, if you don't have hormone health, you're not going to have great results in the gym. That's absolutely true. So unfortunately, today the deck is stacked against us to a degree, and this is a large result of the endocrine disrupting chemicals that are out there in the environment. So plastics in BPA, for instance, it's a xenoestrogen, so it's going to cause some havoc in the body. But even things that are BPA free, oftentimes they're just replacing this with bisphenol S or bisphenol F, which have the same sort of effects, right? And that's just one chemical. We have phthalates, which are directly anti-androgenic pesticides in our water supply. It's in the air we breathe, right? So we have all this going on, and this is why there is a population-level testosterone decline happening. That means that you have less testosterone than your grandfather, or your father before you, and his father before him, and so on. Of course, you can buck this trend. So one thing is trying to remove as much of these endocrine disrupting chemicals from our environment, right? I'm drinking from a glass water bottle here rather than a plastic bottle, for instance, right? So minimizing what we can't avoid everything because it is in the very air that we breathe. Honestly, it's in our food. Even if you're eating organically, we have heavy metals which have these effects. So, but you can minimize, right? And then you can help your detoxification systems in the body so it's able to process this stuff better. Then, of course, the basics of hormone health, like training, sleeping well, diet, all that's going to go into it. And of course, we can then look at some specific things like how can we optimize further, especially as you grow older, because there tends to be a dip in testosterone as you age, but there are ways you can, again, buck this trend. So I like the herbs seem to be very helpful allies in this, but we also need to look at like micronutrients such as zinc, which many people are deficient in because our diet is deficient in it. So there's a whole bunch of little details that go into this. And if you haven't noticed with everything we're talking about, like if I want to get a result, like, I want to do this strength feat, I'm not going to just do the physical training. I'm not going to just add mental training on it, but I'm going to be looking at my diet. Like, can we optimize everything to a degree to get towards this end? Throw the whole kitchen sink at it. It can be complicated, but if you look at just little improvements over time on all these things, it can really get you to where you want to go.
And yeah, it definitely can be complicated, but that's why you hatch on to guys like Logan who have done the work, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you want people who've done the work, who have proof that it works, and it's consistently saying the same thing. Because to tell you the truth, for as long as I've known Logan, you've been saying the same thing. Like everything has always been the same. Like you haven't thwarted over here and now just I'm going to jump on this and jump on that. It's been extremely consistent, and because of that, it's why you're I think a beacon in this industry. Health, fitness, supplementation, everything. I think because it's just you're one of those guys who, like, you walk the walk, you talk to talk, you take that extra step to to okay, we're here. Let's go. Let's go a little bit more. Let's see what else we can get to. Let's see what else we can get to. That's just the mindset that you have. And like you said, yeah, it's everything, because you have breathing, breath work, recovery. So it's the entire picture that will optimize our hormones. But let's go back. Let's go to the herbs, because
Mm-hmm.
as I was going through, I saw there's so many different types of herbs. So can you give us like the top, I don't know, 6 herbs for your. I mean, I'll say 6. I'm throwing out a word 6, but top 6 for hormones, hormone health, for men over 40.
Yeah.
And if you want to go more, by all
Mm-hmm.
means.
Yeah, so herbs are a whole interesting field of study. And again, I want to perform better. For me, it started with cordyceps fungus, so I'll start talking about that one. This is a certain mushroom that in the Himalayan mountains, it attacks at insects and grows. Really fascinating stuff from nature, but I heard about this because some Olympic athletes were using it, and they're breaking a whole bunch of records. It really helps with endurance. First time I used it, I was working with kettlebells at the time, and I noticed a difference in my endurance. So I was like, okay, I was hooked. Like, here's another path I'm going to go down and learn more about this stuff and add it to my training, right? So that would be one of them. As far as the testosterone is concerned, our 2 biggest ones are pine pollen and tonkat ali. Pine pollen is literally the pollen of pine trees. It's pretty unique in that it has phytoandrogens. So most people have heard of phytoestrogens, like are in soy or hops and flax, right? And I was just talking about xenoestrogens. That's a little bit different. Those are chemicals that are not found in nature, that are made through man-made inventions, right? Phytoestrogens can have a role in place, but because we tend to have estrogen dominance, there also can be a point of too much. But the important thing to realize is, nature has the opposite, right? There are phytoandrogens, and the pine pollen is a great source of these, so really helpful in there. We're actually going to be doing the first human trial ever, a study in testosterone improving in pine pollen, so look for results of that later on down the road. But there's also tonkat ali. This one has been much more scientifically studied. It's a root out of Malaysia, and just one of the best for improving testosterone and all the things that are related to that. So these are some of our top sellers at Lost Empire Herbs. So that covers well the testosterone front. But the thing, I talk about this concept of performance herbalism, right? Yeah. So most people think of herbs and they think of either weed as one thing, right? Or, culinary herbs, thyme and rosemary that they use for cooking perhaps. But really, if you understand herbalism, you see that herbs can help you with basically any sort of human function that you want. So you want cognitive improvement, so you're better able to focus and work better? There's some herbs for that. Do you want to sleep better? There's, of course, herbs for that. Do you want to recover better? There's herbs for that. So whatever kind of function you're working at, we can find these herbal allies that will help aid us in doing what we want to do. So, we've been talking about fitness here. So that's the road that I got in. We have a formula called Hercules that is specifically a pre-workout formula. I started in training as like, oh, there's all these pre-workout formulas that are loaded with caffeine or other like crazy stimulants, sometimes way too much, but they're like neon blue and red and stuff. And it's often, they may be helping you with your workout, but at what cost to your health? Because all kinds of like kind of nasty stuff in there as well. So it's like, can I create a purely herbal pre-workout? So we came up with Hercules, which is a blend of ant, cordyceps that I was talking about, shilajit, marrow root, rhodiola. I believe there's one other thing I'm forgetting right now, but take this and just work capacity for a workout is increased. Also tends to help with mental focus in there as well. But honestly, like I can do this and I can just do a workout that lasts an hour, whereas I might be kind of gassed in half an hour normally, right? So that's the power of these. And we really like to focus on herbs that will give and deliver a tangible benefit to people, right? You take this, you notice more energy, right? That's going to help you more than like, oh, I heard about this study that said that this was supposed to help me with this health marker that I don't even know much about, right? So trying to deliver those kind of benefits to people. And there's a whole bunch else, like right here is blue vervain. This is one of my favorite. That is it's a bitter nervine. It takes stress off the nervous system like that, like immediately. As soon as it touches the tongue, like I can feel stress come off my system. So that's a very useful one to have since, modern day living, we're all very stressful lives, right? So wide variety of herbs that can help with a wide variety of functions.
Give me one for sleep.
One for sleep. So this blue vervain can help, but I'll mention ashwagandha. A lot of people have heard of ashwagandha. It has become much better. It is an adaptogen, so it's helping people to better deal with stress. It upregulates the body's capacity to handle stress. So what's often said with that is like these things that stressed me before, I just don't feel it the same way after people are taking it for weeks or a month. But unlike some of the other adaptogens like rhodiola, I mentioned, those tend to be stimulating and can in fact be too much at sometimes. Ashwagandha is actually helpful for sleep, so it's more of a relaxing adaptogen. It's for most people, it's not going to like knock them out. But that does seem to happen for some people, especially if they take a larger dose, but more, it's just going to help your stress capacity so that it's easier to fall asleep in the long run. Ashwagandha can actually be helpful for testosterone as well, because there's a inverse relationship between cortisol, what's known as the stress hormone, and testosterone. Basically, the starting material can move into cortisol rather than testosterone, essentially, with how the hormone's synthesized. So if we can bring down cortisol, then testosterone can often rise, if that is one of the problems in there as well. So ashwagandha is a good one for that.
Okay, let's go to mental capacity.
One of the ones that's big right now is lion's mane mushroom. This is a mushroom that it has a really cool appearance, actually kind of looks like the white matter of the brain, but it's being studied because it improves nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's helping essentially protect the neurons, but also help to grow new ones as well. So this is really useful for not just like memory and concentration right now. Some people can notice a benefit with that, but it's being studied for the cognitive decline that is happening with age and seems to be an increasing part of society as well. So we have a cool formula called Mushroom Brain. It has that lion's mane mushroom along with reishi, cordyceps, and oyster mushroom. And this is just a really cool one that is going to support the neurology and can often help people just feel better, like removing brain fog, just have like a little better focus and concentration. We've heard some people that are having great benefits if they've had like things like traumatic brain injuries before. So definitely something worth checking out.
Okay, what about recovery?
So the pine pollen that I talked about, that's going to help with testosterone, but people tend to report that they're just recovering better overall. So I think that hormonal component is going to have some useful effects with that, but it's also loaded with a bunch of other nutrition as well, so that's going to help there as well. Another one I'll mention is I like Hoshu Wu. This is one of the top anti-aging herbs of Chinese medicine, and it's just it's not really helping the hormones in that sort of way. It's it's really like working in the background with like antioxidant, anti-inflammation. For some people, it does return hair color. This only happens for like less than, doesn't necessarily grow it back. Actually, some people have reported like thicker hair coming in. So, hair growth and color is a very complicated topic, but in some people it does actually like return natural hair color, but that only seems to be like 5 to 10% of people that are taking it. But even without that, it is providing a whole bunch of benefits. So that's one of my favorite herbs.
That's awesome. And then for the women who are listening, women, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, do you have anything?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the one thing that most women do not realize is that testosterone is really important for them as well. Now, some women definitely have too high of testosterone, like PCOS is one case where we see this is an issue. But many women are actually low in testosterone, and low testosterone can come before like low progesterone or estrogen as well. Many more doctors are starting to kind of recognize this, and you'll see testosterone replacement for women. So the pine pollen can actually be really useful for women. But our best thing there that we have is our Athena's Women Formula. This is a blend of 7 different herbs. It's the #1 herb in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine for women. So we have Dong Quai and Shatavari. Also has a bit of the pine pollen in there. Then it's rounded out with 4 different berries: Schizandra, Goji, Longan, and sea buckthorn. And people ask, like, what does this do? It's like, it does everything. There is a hormone focus in there, but it's just loaded with so much that it's hitting on so many systems. So women of all ages have reported great things with this, with symptoms around like PMS, especially, but around menopause, it can help with hot flashes, different things like that. Our whole kind of stance with Lost Empire herbs is try the herbs and see if you have feelable effects from them. If not, we have a 1-year money back guarantee. We honestly want people to try, and like, we know that if they have great results, they're going to come back and continue to use them. But it's really about feeling those tangible effects with them. So you can try herbs across, like, I want something for cognitive improvement. I want something to help my workouts. I want something to help my hormones. And we have a wide variety of different herbs to try, and you can see how they may affect these different areas for you.
Yeah, I love it. Definitely going to get the pine pollen, 100%. I know that I remember taking it out, and we both remember getting the effects from it, like just positive effects. And then we remember when we ran out, we're just like,
you can notice the difference.
So,
and it's,
I think it was new when you introduced that to us. It wasn't like we could go and buy it at the. I think it was.
It's pine pollen is still not well known to this day. It's definitely growing in popularity a little bit, but it's nothing like ashwagandha or cordyceps mushroom in its popularity.
Amazing. So where can everyone get? You just rhymed off all of these amazing herbs. I double stamp, triple stamp. Where can we get those?
Yeah. So the website is lostempireherbs.com. And the website truly is a wealth of information. We have some things that will help people out, like a quiz there that will say, like, what are you interested in? It'll funnel you down to an herb or formula that may help you best with that. We also just like recently installed a AI chatbot, so you can interact with that. And it most of the time it points you in a good direction as well. AI is weird stuff to work with. And there are, of course, just tons of articles, videos. You can contact our customer service, but yeah, there's tons of information there, so head on over and try it out. And if I'll do a special, I'll have a coupon code FUNK for 20% off for anyone that wants to try anything. Again, you're backed by a money back guarantee.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm so impressed. What are the words? I'm just so like, I've seen the whole Lost Empire grow from nothing to where it is now. And with like, you have like 4,000 or 5,000 5-star reviews. Just the way the website has evolved, the information, it's absolutely incredible. And just you yourself, I'm so happy I had you on here. And we talked strength, we talked mindset, we talked hormones, kettlebells. and herbs. And I think that this has been phenomenal. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot. I've double stamped a couple of things that I, have said to these guys. But again, it's like all of these things, like the visualization, some of the other things you're talking about, because it's not sexy, right? Like visualization is zero sexiness
Yep.
at all. But it's like the effectiveness of all of these in grip strength, visualization, the body weight, the body weight movements, the old man strength, like all of those things are like they're not sexy in a way that you go on Instagram and you see all this stuff. Oh, let me try that. Let me try that. Let me try that. Everyone's saying the same thing and no one's getting results. Why don't you guys
Hmm.
come on this side of the where everyone's saying the same thing, and although it's not sexy and it takes a little bit longer, the longevity of it is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I feel
any
like we've covered a lot here, but understand that we could go,
oh
hours and hours, whole weekend, weeks on each one of these topics. So we've honestly only scratched the surface. I'm going to put together a page for anyone listening here, lostempireherbs.com/funk. They'll automatically apply the coupon, but I'll have my own kind of like
cool.
links to some of the things. So if the listeners want to dive deeper into
Yeah,
some of the things that we talked about,
yeah.
again, I have tons of articles and videos available on there, of course, books and various other resources. So I'll point you in some of the right places for digging deeper into some of these materials.
Yeah, I want to actually have you back on again to talk about breath work and
Yeah, so many things we didn't even touch on.
I know. That's what I mean. That's why. Like, I mean, this
Yeah,
is just the surface here, but there's so many great things that I'd love you to be able to teach us and myself and everyone in this. The men that are getting older that need this kind of stuff to help them battle what they're facing on a daily basis. Any last words, and where can people find you, like on in total?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think those are just kind of my final words there. So
Yeah.
understand there is a lot here, but it all comes back down to the foundational stuff and really focusing on that. We can get lost in the forest for the trees, right? So we want to like zoom back. Like, are you taking care of the basics like movement, sleep, diet, breathing? Like, let's focus on those things and realize that each one of these things is like you could become a genius and you could spend a lifetime
Mm.
in doing this thing, but it's really somewhat easy to actually like get the foundation, get the basics going, and of course we can test and tweak from there. So just recognizing that and improving over time is what it's all about. So again, I'll put that webpage together, lostempireherbs.com/funk, and I'll give the coupon as well as a list to other resources. That's of course that website, and as far as more of the fitness stuff is at legendarystrength.com. Again, just wealth of resources available at these places.
Okay, can you make sure you put mental muscle
Yep,
on that,
absolutely.
please? Because that's going to be a book of the month, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess I'll mention because the mental training is difficult to do, like visualization.
uh,
Many people think, "Oh, I can't visualize," or they kind of expect it's supposed to be like real life when they're first trying. One, visualization is a skill; like you can practice and get better at it. But secondly, it can be useful to do some other things. So one of the things that's very helpful with mental training is I have pre-recorded
okay.
hypnosis audio tracks that help people that will like walk you through the visualization, but building in anchors, and people have seen phenomenal results. Like I have one dedicated toward getting stronger. So if you have like a specific strength goal, do this, and after the hypnosis, like you'll be almost magically, but it's not magic. It is mental training applied toward this thing, and you'll be stronger in that way. So that's an easy way to get. That's as much as the work I can do for you in mental training, right? Because it is not the easiest thing to get started with. It's well worth it, but it's not necessarily easy.
100%. And when I said that when I was 14, that like you have to think you practice 3 times a week, for 8 months before the first so
Right?
that was all the time. It was not something that there was a lot of pushback for the first while. Actually, it was probably
Yeah.
pushback all the way to the first event until we saw that it actually worked. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're in.
I
So,
wish I was taught that in my football
oh
training days.
man,
That would have been nice.
we Mike Bugarski. And it's so funny because whenever we talk about that, like we go back and see guys that we used to play with, we always say, man, that visualization. I'm so happy you taught us that, because
Right?
that has helped everybody in so many different ways in their lives. So I
Mhm.
really appreciate having you here, my man. And once again, look up lostempireherbs.com/funk, and you'll get all of the things that we talked about today. Thanks so much, Logan. We'll see you again.